So let me call Dennis Phillips right now from ABC Action News. Dennis should have just dropped his daughter off because a lot of people are panicking. We know, I don't want to mention any names, but we know some people that have hit us up. Oh, my God, there's another storm out there.
No.
It's in the same area where Helene started.
Mention names.
Yeah, I'm not going to call anyone out particular. 727. All right, calling up Dennis Phillips on his cell right now. He should have just dropped his daughter off in the last couple of minutes. Oh, what a couple of days it's been, but nothing like what some people are suffering here in the Tampa Bay area. It's unbelievable.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dennis Phillips, ABC Action News, chief meteorologist. Dennis, I know you've heard it. I know you've been getting pounded. I've had numerous friends of ours, panicking. Oh, my God, there's another system. It's starting right in the same area as Helene. Let's first of all, let's deal with this low pressure that's swirling in the basic area off of Central America where Helene did form.
Yeah, the models keep coming in weaker. Hurricane Center went from 50 down to 40. Would not be surprised if they actually go down to 30 soon.
Yeah, let's explain. So originally 50% chance of development. Now it's down to 40. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, and all that means is over the next 7 days, the forecast chance of 40% of development. It's actually, last I checked, it was 2 a.m. It was 10% in the next 48 hours and 40% in the next 7 days. Models continue to come in weaker. I mean, I think what's going to happen, I think there's just going to be this broad area of low pressure meandering in the Gulf for about a week and just kind of hanging out there. And I don't think at this point very few models actually develop it into anything significant, and it just kind of just hangs out there. Now, it might be, a decent rainmaker for part of the state, like this weekend or early next week, but as an organized system, at least right now, the models are kind of hinting against it.
All right, so your belief is that this is not Helene Part 2?
Not even close.
Gotcha.
I mean, anybody who comes out there and says, oh, well, it might do – I mean, look, anything in the world might happen, but there's nothing reliable. There's going to be – first of all, the water's been churned up a good bit by Helene, so automatically it's a little cooler.
Yep.
You've got shear. You've got a front that's going to come down and kind of stir things up. So right now – it just looks like kind of a nuisance hanging out there without a huge impact. Now, we don't want rain. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of folks, that's the last thing we want is to have to deal with some rain with cleaning up and everyone dealing with the aftermath. But at this point, another organized system like not even close to Helene, I would be really shocked if it's even much more than a low to mid-end tropical storm.
I mean, like you say, anything might happen. Listen, I can say that later on monkeys are going to fly out of my butt. It might happen, but is it going to happen? Probably not.
I don't know. I'll look at your ass all afternoon waiting.
Monkeys might fly out of my butt, but they probably won't. All right, so Dennis, we'll keep our eyes on that. Then the other systems in the Atlantic, really no major threat?
No threat at all. I mean, they're all going to curve away from the U.S., so I mean, after we get rid of what this is, hopefully we'll have some downtime. I do think it's going to stay active, though, right through October, and for that matter, even into mid-November. I don't think we're done with the Caribbean yet. That doesn't mean we're going to see a hurricane in Florida. I just think the setup is such that we're going to be looking at more development out there through probably early to mid-November. I just do. I think that's the way it plays out this year.
Let's deal with a little after action now because we had you on Friday morning. Obviously, I was on really late. I was a solo act because I still can't believe I was able to get to the studio on Friday morning with all the bridges closed. And again, thanks to TPD for getting me across the closed Howard Franklin Bridge to be able to broadcast to all the people with no power. And I'm very grateful. I had to get to the studio. I had to do this job, which I've done during these storms for 30 years. So let's do a little after action now, Dennis. What is running through your mind as we're in cleanup phase now? The event that occurred with Helene, the storm surge, we have not seen this for 103 years. It's been since 1921. Are we out of the woods for another 100 years? I mean, I know that you can't,
Man, I have a tough enough time getting 7-day forecasts. Now you're asking for a 100-year forecast.
No, what I'm saying is it's wishful thinking that this was our once in a century brush. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, anytime you start talking about long-range weather forecasts and you bring up the words it's getting warmer, there's more flooding, whatever, you're always going to get pushback from 50% of the people out there. I mean, that's just the reality of what things are. But what I will say is, regardless of why or how it's happening, there's no doubt that we are getting more water on the coast in the last 10 years than we've seen for people who've lived here 50, 60 years with smaller storms. Ada is a perfect example. I mean, that storm caught so many folks by surprise that we had a weak tropical storm, and look up all the flooding. This storm was over 100 miles offshore, and we still got that kind of flooding. So imagine what it would be like if it was a lot closer. So I don't know. I mean, again, I don't really get into long-range forecasting. You know me at the beginning of hurricane season. I ridicule the long-range hurricane forecast because I think they're always wrong, or usually wrong. But I do think, for whatever reason, the storms have been flooding our area and the state of Florida more than they did in the previous 30, 40, 50 years. And yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the norm now, for whatever reason it's happening.
Dennis, I have to ask you, as far as, I got to tell you, this is kind of embarrassing, but like, you kept talking about the storm surge. And so Doug and I saw, late in the day, the water was starting to rise. And I'm like, he goes, but remember when, the last storm kind of like got sucked out. Like, remember how on Bayshore you saw the water come in and all of a sudden it sucked out during high tide, oddly. I thought that's when it sucked out. But my point is to this question is, you just don't know what the tide is going to do. It can do wonky things. You said this is going to be a high tide. This is what's going to happen. But I mean, there are other factors there's so many factors at play. You can't predict the high tide.
Well, the surge, yeah.
The surge.
No,
the surge. I'm sorry.
The tides we know,
yes.
The surge you can't predict.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
you can predict the surge, but also, Dennis, just to pile on to Roxanne's question, and this is one of the issues, is that we were warned about surge countless times over the 30 years that I've been in the Tampa Bay area. We've been warned about surge and all these predictions, and they never came close to what the predictions were, and this time it did.
Well, here's the difference. A lot of times when we've heard about very high surge predictions, it's been from a smaller storm and one where landfall was expected to be right into our area, right? So you have a storm that missed us in the past. Now, so did this one, but the difference is this one was a much larger storm in terms of size. And I would compare it to Irma. Remember with Irma, which missed us well to the south, it still emptied out Tampa Bay. The bay dried out as that storm came in. So what you're saying is very true, and it's why it's kind of the good news, bad news thing. Why did we not get surge before? Because the storm missed us. And it was a smaller storm, and so that smaller storm was unable to push the kind of water. So those forecasts before were of landfall very close to us in a small storm. So when that storm missed us and it's smaller, you're not going to get the surge. It was a bad forecast. This one, the storm, I mean, honestly, let's be honest, that NHC forecast with Helene was probably the best forecast I have ever seen of any hurricane in my entire life.
That's unbelievable. The accuracy, Dennis, was unprecedented. The fact that they locked that in and it really stayed the same for 7-8 days?
Yeah, and you can argue even longer than that. The models, 11, 12 days before the storm even formed, the models were.
So what is it new computer software? Is it AI? What are they using, something different than last season?
No, I just think everything actually worked out the way it's supposed to in terms of the forecast, which is rare. I mean, weather's chaotic, and a lot of times there's lots of changes. And this time, there were two major features, a high to the east and a low to the west, and it was exactly where it was supposed to be, and it never moved. So it's rare. We all know, weather is not the most accurate thing sometimes, especially in Florida. But in this particular case, it absolutely was. But, getting back to your question, again, a smaller storm missing us, you're going to miss out on most of that tide. If that storm's in the path that hit us directly, we would have had that surge. But in this particular case, we had a big, big storm that did exactly what it was supposed to do. And when that happened, we got it. And that's, unfortunately, that's the way it played out.
The flooding in so many parts, my frame of reference is South Tampa, Beach Park along West Shore. We're going to have Froggy on in just a few minutes. Froggy from the MJ Morning Show, his home had a couple of feet of water in it. He's in Town and Country in Baycrest, and the Bay crested inside his home. So we're going to talk to Froggy in just a matter of minutes. But, Dennis, I made some observations, with the homes that were flooded. And in my neighborhood, and this is like this in a lot of areas, you have the newer homes that were built up high because of requirements with the FEMA flood elevations. But we have so many areas and so many homes that were older, 1950s, 1960s, early 70s builds that are built on grade that weren't built up. And you wonder why. We had hurricanes. Why did they allow these homes to be built at ground level? And you look, Dennis, I know there's a lot I'm piling on here, and then I'll turn you loose. But what I've seen with the homes in my neighborhood, the ones that were flooded with 2-3 feet of water inside, first you see the furniture come out and the mattresses and all of their belongings, drying out or destroyed and sitting out at the curbside. And now I'm starting to see all the drywall come out of the house where you're supposed to cut. And I've got the formula. FEMA's got a formula, but you got to cut significantly above the wet spot because the water wicks up the gypsum in drywall. So I'll give you some of those details later on. But, Dennis, it's just the progression of the furniture, the belongings, and now all the drywall, wood flooring being ripped out and tossed at the curb, and carpets being rolled out onto the curb. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and, the water, when you look at aerial shots of a lot of areas before people emptied the stuff from their house and put it out on the street, we didn't look like we had that much damage because everything was on the inside compared to North Carolina, where entire little towns are gone. We all know how horrific it's been in our area, and yet I'm seeing, and everybody's seeing, the videos out of North Carolina where literally, the entire town has just been washed away. And it was two totally different things. That was totally rainwater. Ours was totally surge. Rainwater was nothing for this storm for us. Most people got a couple inches of rain, 2-3 inches of rain, because it moved through so fast. It moved through in a 12-hour stretch. So we had Debbie last month, whenever it was, that brought all that flooding, and that was purely rain and no surge. And this was all surge and no rain.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's devastating to see this stuff and to know that this is going to be going on for a long time. And I guess you know MJ and guys. It's just you try to make it day by day. And yesterday was probably the worst. All right.
Yeah.
You think about maybe over the weekend, but yesterday we're seeing everything, and then you hope every day. I don't know. This is going to take months.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And, people are just still in shock and realizing that their homes were just turned upside down. It is heartbreaking. My heart pours out. Dennis, thank you for all of your access, your availability. The audience loves to hear from you. You're comforting. You're informative. And we appreciate you guys as a broadcast partner at ABC Action News.
Well, hopefully the next time we talk, we're talking about my Christmas decorations and nothing else.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it.
We'll see how it goes. But thoughts to everybody, and we just got to hang in there. And I know a lot of people who listen to y'all on the radio, and I get a lot of response from folks. Oh, I heard you on MJ. Oh, I heard you talking to Roxanne. I heard you talking to all the folks, and they love y'all too. And you're giving them comfort and taking their mind off of things for at least a little bit. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do. So thanks for what you all do as well.
Oh,
thank you, Dennis. Dennis Phillips, ABC Action News, Chief Meteorologist, and we'll talk to you soon, Dennis. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You like the video? If so, go ahead and click like, share, subscribe, and get more.